There are some stories in Formula One that aren't written in books. They're not told in interviews, and they're definitely not shared in the brightly lit hallways of the FIA. They live in the shadows, in the tired eyes of mechanics who worked until dawn, in the whispers of Italian engineers who saw the impossible unfold right in front of them. And this is one of those stories, a story that begins in the 1990s, Ferrari's most turbulent decade, the decade where chaos shared the same garage as ambition, where every victory felt accidental and every failure inevitable. Ferrari was like an ancient cathedral on the brink of collapse, majestic on the outside, broken on the inside. But nothing, absolutely nothing, could prepare the team for what was about to happen. Because back then, Ferrari didn't chase pilots, but for the first time in decades, they were desperate. Desperate for answers, for leadership, for redemption. And that's when a name began to circulate like a silent storm. Michael Schumacher, the two-time world champion, the German prodigy, the driver who turned every millimeter of asphalt into a personal war. A man who believed pain was just a variable, and losing was a choice he would never make. But before we go any further, let me ask you something. How do you think an Italian team, overflowing with tradition, pride, and hot blood, reacted to hearing that a foreigner, a German, would come in and tell them what was wrong? If you think they applauded, you're very mistaken. The atmosphere inside the team was so tense that many believe if you took a deep breath inside the factory back then, you could actually taste the fear in the air. Because Schumacher wasn't coming just to drive, he was coming to destroy the old, to build the new. Ferrari didn't know it yet, but it was about to face its greatest enemy, change itself. The first time Schumacher walked into Maranello felt like a movie scene. The polished floor reflected the iconic red, but the silence was almost threatening. Mechanics froze, engineers crossed their arms, veterans looked away, as if they were witnessing a sacrilege. One of them even muttered, "This German thinks he's going to run things here? We'll see." And that was the first mistake, underestimating him. Because when Schumacher walked into the engineering room, he didn't act like a guest. He acted like he had always belonged there. He didn't smile, he didn't wave, he didn't give an inspiring speech. He simply placed a pile of papers on the table and said, "This car won't win anything." Silence. A silence so absolute, some swear they could hear the air slicing between the clenched teeth of the Italian bosses. That was the beginning of the war. Do you know what nobody talks about? The secret meetings held late at night, the arguments that ended with door slamming, the mechanics divided between defending Ferrari's honor and following the only man who seemed to know what he was doing.
Some said, "This guy's going to save us." Others, "This guy will destroy everything." But Schumacher ignored all of it. He had one goal, only one. And to reach it, he had to transform Ferrari. Not on the outside, from the inside. Here's a hook few people know. At the very first official test, Schumacher stepped out of the car and said something was wrong with the front left suspension, something so minimal it would sound like paranoia to anyone else. When the engineers, annoyed, opened the part, it was deformed by just 2 millimeters. 2 millimeters. It was impossible to detect that just by driving, but Schumacher detected it. And in that moment, some of the biggest skeptics began to fear. Not the car, not the bosses, but him. "This man sees what doesn't exist," a veteran engineer whispered. But as he began winning some people over, he started losing others. Because the more Ferrari bent to his demands, the more traditional Italians felt their culture being swallowed. And the tension exploded when Schumacher demanded to change the team's entire way of working. Longer meetings, harder training, endless testing, and one very clear rule. If you make a mistake, admit it, fix it, and do it again. That destroyed many egos and ended some careers. But the breaking point came on one specific night, a night that never appeared in any report. After a frustrating day of testing, when everything seemed wrong, the entire team started yelling at each other inside the garage. Italians shouting, Germans shouting back, mechanics storming out, bosses losing control. It was like decades of frustration were exploding all at once, and Schumacher stood still in the corner, the only silent one. Until suddenly, he walked toward one of the cars, placed his hand on the cockpit, and said in a low, almost ominous voice, "Ferrari doesn't need more shouting. It needs direction." The effect of that sentence was devastating. Some lowered their heads. Others were furious. One even confronted him, saying Schumacher knew nothing about Ferrari's soul. Schumacher responded with freezing calm. "Ferrari's soul is dying, and if you don't want to save it, I'll save it alone." And right there, in that exact moment, everything changed. because no one in that garage could ignore what they saw in his eyes. Determination, fanaticism, fury, purpose, a mixture too dangerous to underestimate. From that moment on, Ferrari began to change, piece by piece, process by process, mindset by mindset. Every test became a manifesto. Every mistake became a lesson. Every detail became a battlefield. And Schumacher became the invisible commander of that revolution. But here's the real irony. What looked like destruction became rebirth. Because years later, when the world watched Ferrari dominate Formula One like never before, winning title after title like an unstoppable machine, very few knew the truth. Victory was born there, in the tension, in the fear, in the internal war.
In the man who dared to confront Ferrari, to save Ferrari. And this was only the first part of the story, because what happened next, the silent betrayals, the forbidden decisions, the secret late-night test sessions, is something so shocking, many still try to hide it. But we will reveal it in the next chapter of F1 Exposed.